Midnight draped itself over the Grand Marquette Hotel like a velvet cloak, softening the chandeliers, glow, and quieting the marble corridors where whispers lived longer than footsteps. The old-world luxury of the place never slept. It merely shifted, exhaled, and waited. And Lena Morrow moved through it with the practiced grace of someone who belonged everywhere and nowhere all at once. Her heels tapped delicately against the polished floors as she crossed the lobby, her shadow stretching tall behind her. Guests often stopped what they were doing just to watch her pass. Some stared openly, drinking her in with the hunger of men unaccustomed to denial. Others watched with the silent envy of women who believed beauty made life easier. They didn't see that it often made life harder. They didn't see that Lena's soft smile was armor, not invitation. Tonight, like every night, she wore that smile as she collected the list of morning arrivals from the concierge desk. Her long dark hair, tied loosely at the nape of her neck, framed a face so striking it had once earned her a modeling contract she never accepted. She preferred control over spectacle, silence over applause. At 24, Lena had become one of the hotel's most valued hospitality liaisons, trusted with guests who required discretion, diplomacy, and the ability to remain invisible despite being unforgettable. "Lena," whispered Jerome, the night receptionist, his voice thin with nerves. "He's coming." She paused, her pen hovering above the clipboard. "Who?" He leaned closer, almost trembling. "The VIP, the one they warned us about. He arrives at dawn." Lena resisted the urge to laugh. Every month, someone was labeled dangerous, eccentric, or important enough to ruin us all. But Jerome's expression held genuine fear. She arched a brow, waiting. "They say he hates attention," Jerome breathed. "They say he sometimes vanishes entire teams of staff if they annoy him. They say he's—" "Jerome," Lena interrupted gently, "they say a lot of things." She offered him a reassuring smile, though something about the air felt heavier tonight, charged. She continued reviewing the list, but her fingers tightened around the clipboard as she read the name. No accompanying photo, no biography, no preferences, just a note scrawled in red ink. "He is not to be disturbed. He speaks to no one unless he initiates contact. Do not anger him." Interesting, she thought, or troubling. A distant storm rumbled beyond the tall windows. Thunder swallowed the silence, vibrating through her chest. Lena's gaze drifted to her reflection, poised, perfect, unreadable. She was good at that, revealing nothing, feeling nothing, or pretending not to. She had learned long ago that beauty attracted all the wrong kinds of attention. Beauty made you a target long before it made you a treasure. And Lena had been running from the consequences of that truth for years, from a man who believed her face belonged to him, that her silence meant agreement, and that her fear made her his. Even now, years later, she still checked the locks twice, still slept with her phone under her pillow, still woke from dreams where his voice crawled under her skin. She took a slow breath, steadying her pulse. The Grand Marquette had become her sanctuary, her fortress, the one place she blended into a world structured enough to keep danger at bay. Or so she hoped. A soft chime signaled another elevator descending. A couple stepped out, laughing drunkenly, their carefree joy echoing against the marble. Lena watched them disappear hand in hand, a brief warmth flickering in her chest before fading to its usual cool loneliness. Love, connection, vulnerability, those were luxuries she couldn't afford. Not anymore. She turned off the lobby chandelier, leaving only soft wall sconces glowing like fireflies trapped in glass. Midnight belonged to her, and she made her rounds in silence, her shadow trailing her like a loyal companion. But as she passed the tall glass doors, a gust of cold wind swept against them. The lights flickered. Then faintly, she sensed something shift, a presence, distant yet approaching, like a storm that had chosen its target. Her phone buzzed. A single message from an unknown number. "You can't hide forever, Lena." Her blood froze. Somewhere in the city, in the darkness before dawn, a reclusive millionaire who hated attention stepped into a private jet, unknowing that his arrival would change her life forever. The morning light crept slowly across the Grand Marquette Hotel, brushing gold against the marble floors and gleaming crystal fixtures. Lena stood near the front desk, reviewing her schedule, but every few seconds her gaze drifted toward the entrance, as if pulled by an invisible thread. The VIP would be arriving any moment. She could feel it like a shift in the air, a pressure building against her ribs. Her phone buzzed with another message from the unknown number. No name, no details, only 3 words that made her stomach tighten. I found you. She swallowed hard and locked her screen before anyone noticed her trembling fingers. She refused to let fear dictate the rhythm of her life again. Not here, not now. A line of luxury cars rolled to a stop outside the hotel entrance. The doorman straightened. Jerome fumbled with the guest book. Housekeeping peeked around corners. Everyone felt the shift, as if the entire hotel held its breath. Then a single black car, long and sleek with tinted windows, pulled into the circular drive. It didn't belong to a company or corporation. It belonged to someone with power, real power, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. The back door opened. A tall man stepped out, wearing an elegant charcoal coat that moved like liquid in the breeze. His shoulders were broad, his presence cold and sharp as winter air. He carried no luggage. No assistant followed him, and yet he walked with the authority of someone accustomed to people clearing a path without being asked. Damien Thorne. Lena did not need a picture to recognize him. She felt him before she saw him. The hotel suddenly seemed too narrow, its walls closing in as he approached the entrance. His dark hair was swept back, revealing a face made of angles and shadows. Every step he took echoed with a silence that demanded attention. Their eyes met. Only for a heartbeat, but it struck through her like a jolt. His gaze was piercing, a deep, unreadable darkness that seemed to study every breath she took. Not hungry like the others, not admiring. He looked at her as if she were a question he intended to solve. "Welcome to the Grand Marquette, Mr. Thorne," she said, her voice steady even as her pulse raced. "We have prepared everything according to your specifications." He said nothing at first. He simply watched her, as if she carried a secret he recognized, as if he, too, had secrets carved into his silence. Finally he spoke, his voice low, smooth, dangerous. "Good, lead the way." She walked him through the lobby. Every staff member lowered their gaze, uneasy under the weight of his presence. When the elevator doors closed behind them, Lena felt the tension rise between them like charged electricity. "I requested privacy," he said quietly. "You will have it," she replied. He looked at her again, deeper this time. "I cannot afford mistakes." Lena felt a shiver run through her. Neither can I. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, 2 guarded souls carrying worlds they refused to reveal. Then the elevator chimed softly. The doors opened. But before she could step out, his voice stopped her. "Someone is watching you," he said. Her breath hitched. "How do you know?" He stepped closer, close enough that she felt his warmth. "Because I felt it the moment you did." Lena's steps echoed down the luxury hallway as she guided Damien toward his penthouse suite. Her heart beat unevenly, not from his proximity, but from the words he had spoken. "Someone is watching you." She pretended she hadn't felt the shift in the air, the tingling along her spine, the invisible gaze crawling over her skin. But Damien felt it too. That terrified her more than the message on her phone. The penthouse doors opened with a soft sigh, revealing a room draped in muted gold and warm ivory. Floor to ceiling, windows displayed the entire city stretched beneath them like a glittering maze. Damien crossed the room without a word, scanning every corner with a sharp, predator-like focus. "This will do," he said quietly. Lena nodded and handed him the folder containing everything he needed for his stay. He accepted it, his fingers brushing hers for only a second. But that second was enough. A spark, subtle yet unmistakable, flared between them. She inhaled sharply. He watched her with the kind of attention that felt forbidden, dangerous, intimate. "Your arrival was kept completely private," she said, stepping back to regain control. "No one has access to your floor except authorized staff." He tilted his head, studying her again. "Are you afraid of me, Lena?" Her breath caught. "No." He took one step closer. "You should be afraid of something. It is written all over you." Her heart slammed against her ribs. She forced her composure. Everyone has shadows they would rather keep hidden. "I do not hide mine," he murmured. "Not everyone has your strength." "Or your fear," he replied. The room felt smaller, the silence tighter. Lena turned away, pretending to adjust the curtains just to break the intensity of his stare. When she faced him again, he was looking out the window, hands in his pockets, posture rigid. "Someone is following you," he said without turning. "Whoever it is, their presence is not subtle. It is obsessive." Cold washed through her. She hadn't told a soul about Marcus. She hadn't spoken his name in 2 years. She had changed her number, her apartment, her hair. She thought she had escaped him. "How do you know?" she whispered. "Because obsession has a scent," Damien replied. "And I recognize predators when I feel them near." "Why would you care?" she asked quietly. For the first time, something flickered across his face, something raw. "Because I know what it is like to be hunted." Before she could respond, a sudden noise crackled through the hallway speaker. Static, distortion. Then a warped voice whispered through the intercom. "Found you." Lena froze. Damien's expression turned lethal. "Pack your things," he said. "Now." "Why?" "Because this is no coincidence." He stepped closer, his voice low and fierce. "Whoever is after you is not just watching. They're coming." Before Lena could speak, the power flickered. The lights dimmed. And somewhere in the hotel, a door slammed hard enough to echo through every floor. The hallway lights flickered again, dimming to a soft, eerie glow that stretched shadows across the penthouse floor. Lena's breath trembled as she backed away from the door, her pulse thundering in her ears. The intercom was silent now, but the echo of that warped whisper hung in the air like a stain. Damien stood perfectly still, shoulders tense, eyes sharp and dark with something close to fury. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. Lena swallowed hard. "You think he is here, inside the hotel?" "I think he has been here longer than you realize," Damien replied. He moved to the control panel near the wall, fingers gliding over the screen as he accessed the security feed. Every camera flickered with blurred static. A few seconds of movement. Then nothing. It was as if someone had deliberately wiped the footage or jammed the system. Damien's jaw tightened. This is not amateur work. Whoever is doing this knows exactly how to make themselves invisible. Lena wrapped her arms around herself, trying to breathe evenly. Memories clawed at her. Marcus standing under a street lamp the night she escaped. Marcus whispering threats through the cracks of her apartment door. Marcus telling her that beauty like hers was meant to be owned. She felt the old terror rise, but Damien's voice cut through it. "Look at me," he said, turning toward her. She lifted her gaze and found his eyes steady and unwavering, as if he were anchoring her with nothing more than a look. "You are not alone," he said. "Whatever you have been running from stops tonight." Lena wanted to believe him, wanted to let that certainty sink into the hollow parts of her chest. But she knew how relentless Marcus was. He did not give up. He did not forgive. He only hunted. "What if I put you in danger?" she whispered. "What if he comes for you too?" Damien stepped closer. His voice dropped to a low, calm tone. "Let him try." Before she could respond, a faint metallic scrape echoed from the hallway outside, a sound too deliberate to be accidental. Damien's hand moved instinctively toward the concealed holster beneath his coat. He motioned for her to stay quiet as he approached the door. The scraping stopped. Then a soft, slow tap began on the other side. One tap, a pause, then another, a rhythm meant to taunt. Lena's knees weakened. She felt the cold grip of fear closing around her spine. Damien pressed a finger to his lips, signaling silence, then checked the peephole. But the glass was smeared with something dark, thick, blocking visibility completely. "Stay back," he whispered. He cracked the door open an inch. The hallway outside was empty, too empty, silent in a way that felt wrong. The air carried the faint scent of cologne she once knew too well, the scent Marcus used to wear. Lena's breath hitched. He wanted her to know he was close. Damien shut the door and locked it again. His expression hardened into something sharp and dangerous. "He is not playing games anymore," he said. He is escalating. Lena felt her heart twist. What do we do now? Damien stepped closer, his voice low and certain. Now we stop running. Because whoever is stalking you is no longer hunting in the shadows. He is coming for you in the open. And I will not let him reach you. The night deepened around the penthouse, wrapping the windows in a dark reflection that made the city outside look distant and unreachable. Lena stood near the glass, her fingers trembling against the cold surface as she stared at her own faint silhouette. For a moment, she didn't recognize the woman looking back at her, the fear in her eyes, the exhaustion in her posture, the shadows from a past she had never fully escaped. Behind her, Damien moved with silent purpose. He was securing the doors, checking every lock, checking every inch of the suite as if he expected the walls themselves to betray them. His presence filled the room like a shield, and yet Lena felt exposed in a way she never had before. Someone was out there, someone who knew her, someone who wanted her back. When he finally turned toward her, she saw something in his eyes she could not name. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was something sharper, something personal, as if her danger had awakened something he had kept buried. Tell me about him, Damien said quietly. Start from the beginning. Lena pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to gather the pieces of a story she had never spoken aloud. Marcus Hale was once a charming illusion, a man who offered the kind of attention she had mistaken for affection. But obsession lived behind his smiles, and she realized too late that his interest had nothing to do with love and everything to do with possession. He followed me, she whispered, tracked me, watched me sleep, watched me walk, watched me breathe. I moved cities and he kept finding me. Every time I tried to cut him off, he got worse. Damien's jaw clenched. You reported him. Lena nodded. He had connections, a family with money, people who made evidence disappear. They said he was harmless, said he was suffering from heartbreak, said I should be flattered. Damien closed his eyes for a brief second. Whoever protected him may be helping him now. She shivered. When the messages stopped a year ago, she thought it was over. She thought he finally lost interest. She didn't know he was just waiting for the moment she let her guard fall. Damien moved closer until he was standing just inches from her. His voice dropped to a quiet, steady promise. He will not touch you again, not while I am here. The conviction in his words sent a tremor through her chest. She had never been protected before, never been claimed with such certainty, and the feeling unsettled her heart more than fear ever could. She turned toward him, her breath brushing the air between them. Why are you helping me, Damien? You don't even know me. He didn't look away, because I know what it is like to be hunted. I know what it is like to lose someone because you couldn't protect them, and I will not live that story again. Lena felt the world tilt around her, the gravity between them pulling her closer. She didn't step back. She couldn't. The warmth of him, the quiet fury in his eyes, the pain behind his control, all of it reached into her in a way no one ever had. A sudden sound interrupted them, a faint vibration against the door. Not a knock, not a scrape, something sliding. Damien strode toward it and pulled the door open in one swift motion. A single photograph lay on the floor. Lena bent down her hands, shaking as she picked it up. It was a picture of her standing at the hotel balcony earlier that night. But someone else appeared in the photo too, a reflection in the glass behind her. A man's silhouette watching her. Damien took the photo from her fingers, his expression turning dark, cold, lethal. He was close, he said. Too close. And he is not done. The hours crawled by in a silence so heavy it felt alive. The photograph lay on the coffee table between Lena and Damien, its edges curling slightly where her trembling fingers had held it. Each time she looked at it, her breath thinned. Marcus had been standing behind her earlier that night, close enough to touch her, close enough to whisper in her ear if he wanted to. And she never felt a thing. Damien paced the living room, his movements sharp and controlled. He was making calls to people who did not work for the hotel, people who answered with clipped greetings and spoke in codes. Whoever Damien really was, whoever he had been before this moment, it was becoming clear. He was not simply a wealthy guest with privacy issues. There was a darkness in his voice, a quiet authority that came from surviving things most people never imagined. He ended one call and turned toward her. We are leaving this hotel, he said. Now. Lena's eyes widened. Where would we even go? Somewhere he cannot reach you. Her voice shook. He always reaches me. Damien walked to her kneeling so they were eye level. Not this time, Lena. I will not let him trap you again. She wanted to believe him so badly her chest ached. But hope was a dangerous thing. Hope made you vulnerable. Hope made you visible. And she had lived too long in the shadows to trust that safety existed for someone like her. Damien stood and began gathering her things. The moment his back was turned, Lena heard something. A faint rustle outside the door. Not footsteps. Not breathing. Something softer. Something dragging across the carpet like fabric brushing where it should not be. Her heart froze. Damien. He stopped instantly, turning his head, slightly listening. The noise came again, barely audible, but there. He stepped toward the door, his posture shifting into something predatory. He opened it with a sudden, swift movement, ready to confront whoever stood behind it. But the hallway was empty. A cold breeze drifted in. The floor was clean. No photograph, no message, no sign of anyone. Lena's voice trembled. He is playing with us. Damien shut the door. No, he is testing the boundaries, seeing how fast we react, measuring our fear. She wrapped her arms around herself. He wants me to panic. He wants control, Damien said, but he will not get it. When Damien reached for his phone again, the lights flickered, once 2 times, then went completely out, plunging them into darkness. Lena gasped, her hand reaching blindly for the table. The room felt like it was shifting, breathing closing in. Damien's voice found her in the dark. I am right here. Do not move. She felt his hand brush hers, guiding her behind him. A faint red emergency light glowed from the hallway, seeping under the door. Footsteps echoed somewhere far below, not hurried, slow, calculated. Electricity hummed back to life, but only partially. The suite remained dim, the shadows thicker than before. Damien moved toward the balcony, checking outside, scanning the edges of the building. When he returned, his expression was no longer anger. It was war. He is not only after you, Lena, Damien said quietly. He is after anyone who tries to protect you. Her breath caught. Why? Because obsession is not love, he replied. Obsession destroys anything that stands in its way. Lena felt her knees weaken. Is there anywhere he cannot find me? Yes, Damien said, stepping closer. Behind me. For the first time since her nightmare began, she felt something warm break through the ice in her chest. Not safety, but the promise of it. Morning arrived without sunlight. Thick gray clouds choked the sky, casting a dull, muted glow across the city. Lena stood by the window, wrapped in Damien's jacket, because the moment she tried to step out of the penthouse suite, a cold fear gripped her chest. She barely slept. Damien did not sleep at all. He had spent the entire night speaking in low tones to people who never questioned him, people who worked in shadows as comfortably as Marcus stalked them. By sunrise, the air around Damien had changed. He was calmer, but in a way that felt dangerous, as if his silence now carried the weight of a decision he had already made. We have to leave today, he said as he entered the living room. I arranged a secure vehicle. My estate is fortified. He will not reach you there. Lena shook her head, her voice thin. He always finds a way. You do not understand what he is capable of. Damien stepped closer, lifting her chin gently, with one hand forcing her to meet his eyes. And you do not understand what I will do to keep you alive. The words sank into her like heat, melting the ice inside her chest. Something inside her softened, trembled, then clung to his voice like it was the first promise anyone had ever made with sincerity. Before she could respond, a sharp knock cut through the room. Not hesitant, not nervous. A firm, deliberate knock. Damien turned, instantly positioning himself between her and the door. He looked through the peephole, then exhaled. Hotel security, he said, not him. He opened the door, but not fully, keeping his body angled as a shield. A guard stood outside, sweat glistening along his brow. Sir, there was an incident on the South Terrace, he said. You should both see this. Damien hesitated, then nodded, keeping his hand on Lena's back as they followed the guard down the stairwell. The elevator was out of service, a detail that made Damien frown. When they reached the terrace, The early morning wind whipped against Lena's hair, and the guard pointed toward the far corner. Something was placed on the floor, a small box, wrapped neatly in black paper tied with a red ribbon. Lena's heart dropped. Damien stepped in front of her, raising one hand in warning. "Stay back." He approached the box, slowly, a tension building around him like the air before a lightning strike. When he knelt and lifted the lid, Lena felt her breath halt. Inside was a handful of rose petals, dried and darkened. Mixed among them was a silver necklace she had thrown away years ago, one Marcus had forced on her during a night she tried to forget. A necklace she had destroyed before fleeing her old apartment. Damien's jaw tightened. He knows your past. He knows your movements. He is not stalking you. He is studying you. Lena felt sick, her knees buckling, as Damien caught her before she collapsed. A shadow moved near the glass doors. A blur, a silhouette. Damien reacted like a storm, spinning around, pulling her behind him as hotel security rushed forward. But by the time they reached the doorway, the figure was gone, vanishing like smoke. Lena looked at Damien, trembling. "He is closer than we thought." Damien held her face in both hands, his voice low, fierce, unyielding. "Then he made his first mistake. He got close enough for me to hunt him. And I promise you, Lena, I will." The ride to Damien's estate felt endless, even though the streets were nearly empty. Rain misted across the windows, leaving ghostly trails that blurred the city lights. Lena sat in the backseat beside Damien, his presence steady and warm yet tense as a bowstring pulled too tight. Two black SUVs followed them, and another trailed in front, forming a protective convoy. But even with all the security, Lena felt watched, hunted, as if Marcus's breath was still on her neck. Damien didn't speak for most of the drive. His jaw was clenched, his eyes focused on the dark road ahead, as if expecting danger to rise from the shadows themselves. At one point, Lena reached for her phone, but Damien gently placed his hand over her, stopping her. "He may have infected your device," he said quietly. "Every time you turn it on, he could be tracking your location." Lena's breath hitched. Marcus used to do that. He once showed up outside a cafe where she was meeting a friend and whispered in her ear that he liked the way she held her cup. She hadn't touched coffee since. Damien must have sensed her spiraling, because he squeezed her hand, not possessively, but grounding her so she didn't fall apart. "You are safe with me," he said. The words warmed her and terrified her all at once. When they finally reached Damien's estate, a towering mansion, hidden behind iron gates and layers of surveillance, the guards rushed to secure the perimeter. Lena stepped out of the car and felt the weight of the world pressing against her shoulders. The storm clouds overhead seemed frozen thick and heavy, like they were waiting for something to break. Inside the mansion, everything was quiet, almost too quiet, the kind of silence that amplifies every heartbeat. Damien guided her through the grand foyer, past polished floors and dark wood walls, toward a private wing he rarely used. "You will stay here," he said gently. "No one enters this section without my permission. Not staff, not security, no one." Lena nodded, but her eyes drifted to the tall windows. For a split second, she thought she saw movement outside, but when she blinked, the shadow disappeared. Her fear rushed back, thick and suffocating. Damien noticed immediately. He stepped closer, his voice low. "Tell me what you saw." She hesitated. "I don't know, maybe nothing." He studied her face. "You saw something, or someone." Before she could answer, the security system chimed loudly. A deep, urgent alarm echoed through the mansion. Red lights pulsed across the hallway. Several guards rushed to the monitors. Damien grabbed Lena's hand and pulled her to the security room. The screens flickered with grainy black and white footage from the gates, cameras, trees, fence line, and driveway. Then one of the guards froze, pointing at the central monitor. "Sir, look at this." Damien leaned in, narrowing his eyes. A man stood just beyond the outer gate, hidden beneath a hood. Rain dripped from his coat. His posture was relaxed, almost casual, but his head was tilted upward like he was staring directly into the lens. Directly into them. The camera auto-focused, sharpening his face. Lena gasped and covered her mouth. "Marcus." Damien's expression shifted into something lethal. something that promised violence. One of the guards spoke into the radio. "Sir, should we approach him?" Damien's voice dropped lower than Lena had ever heard. "No, he wants confrontation. He wants a show. He wants her to panic." Marcus lifted his hand, slowly revealing something clenched in his fingers. A small white envelope. He held it up to the camera, then placed it gently at the gate before stepping back into the darkness. Lena's voice trembled. "He knows where I am." Damien took a slow breath, the calm before a storm. He walked to her, lifted her chin, and looked her in the eyes. "He knows where you are," he said. "But now he knows where I am too." And he made the mistake of letting me see his face. Rain hammered against the mansion windows as if the sky itself had decided to warn them. The envelope Marcus left at the gate sat unopened on the central table in Damien's security room. No one dared touch it yet. Not the guards. Not Lena. Not even Damien, who usually faced danger without blinking. Lena stared at it as fear wrapped tighter around her chest. She had received letters from Marcus before, ones filled with obsession, ones dripping with delusion. But the fact that this one was delivered to Damien's home meant something had changed. He was crossing lines he had never crossed before. Damien stood beside her, silent, as he examined every camera feed, every angle, every shadow outside. His shoulders were rigid, his breath slow, and controlled the way a man breathes when he is close to losing control, but refusing to. Finally, he opened the envelope with a swift motion. Inside was a single photograph. Lena's breath stilled. It was a picture of her sleeping in her old apartment, one she had taken just before she moved. But this photograph was not old. The timestamp printed faintly in the corner was from 4 days ago. 4 days ago, she had been asleep, believing she was safe. Her knees weakened. Damien caught her before she collapsed, guiding her to the nearest chair. His hand rested on her shoulder, a gentle contrast to the fury burning in his eyes. "He has been inside your space," Damien said quietly. "He was close enough to touch you." Lena's voice broke. "Why is he doing this? Why me?" Damien knelt in front of her, his expression softening for the first time since sunset. "Because men like him do not see people. They see objects they can own. And you left. Worse, you escaped him. Obsession feeds on that." She shivered, feeling the truth settle like cold water in her veins. She had run so far, changed her entire life, and still Marcus found her. "But how did he find me here?" she whispered. "This place is locked down." Damien looked away as if fighting something inside himself. "Because someone gave him information. Someone who knows my estate. Someone close." The words hit her like a blow. Someone inside Damien's world, someone he trusted, someone with access. Before Lena could respond, the lights flickered again, the second time within minutes. Damien stood instantly, signaling the guards, who rushed to secure every door. A guard hurried in, pale. "Sir, the south perimeter sensors were triggered. Something moved across the grounds but disappeared before we could intercept." Damien's demeanor changed completely. Gone was the calm, strategic posture. In its place was a quiet rage sharpened into purpose. "No more waiting," he said. "We search the grounds. We find him before he gets closer." Lena stood, her voice trembling. "I am coming with you." Damien turned, stunned. "Absolutely not." She stepped closer, her eyes burning with something fierce. "I lived in fear for years. I will not hide while he circles us like prey. I want to know what he wants. I want to see the face of the man who destroyed my life." Damien moved closer, his voice low. "If you come, you stay behind me. You do not leave my sight. If I tell you to run, you run." Lena nodded, once her heart pounding. They stepped outside into the storm, the wind whipping across the gardens, the night deep and suffocating. Security fanned out across the property, flashlights slicing through the darkness. Damien kept Lena close, his hand firm around her wrist, guiding her through the wet grass and the rustling trees. Every sound felt amplified, every shadow alive. Then a scream tore through the night. Not Lena's. A guard's voice, panicked, desperate, came through the radio. "South wall. He is here. He is here." Lena's blood froze. Damien pulled her behind him, his breath hard. But when they reached the south wall, they saw something that made Lena's heart collapse inside her chest. The guard lay unconscious, soaked in rain. And above him on the stone wall, smeared in dark dripping ink, were 5 chilling words. "You should have stayed mine." The storm raged harder as Damien lifted the unconscious guard into his arms, carrying him back toward the mansion. Lena followed close behind, drenched, shaking her breath shallow as thunder cracked across the dark sky. Every step felt heavier than the last. The message smeared across the stone wall clung to her like ice. "You should have stayed mine." Marcus was no longer hiding. He was taunting. He was escalating. He was declaring war. Inside the mansion, the guard was rushed to a secured room while Damien barked orders at security. His voice held a dangerous calm, the kind of quiet that came before something irrevocable. Lena stood near the staircase, dripping rainwater, her hands trembling against the banister. She felt like the walls were closing in, like every breath was a countdown. Damien approached her and took her hand, drawing her closer. His voice softened. "Are you all right?" She nodded despite the fear clawing at her ribs. "I am tired of running Damien. What does he want from me now?" Damien brushed wet strands of hair from her face. "He wants control and fear, but he is losing both." A sudden crash echoed from the far end of the hall. A window shattered. Security rushed toward the noise, weapons drawn. Damien cursed under his breath, pulling Lena behind him as he sprinted down the corridor. Glass glittered across the floor. The window frame hung crooked. Rain poured inside the hall, and on the windowsill was something Lena recognized instantly. A silver ring. One Marcus had forced her to wear during the worst period of her life. A ring she had thrown into a river 2 years ago. Her knees buckled as Damien steadied her. This is his signature, his way of reminding her that her past was never truly gone. Another guard shouted from the courtyard that motion was detected near the east garden. Damien tightened his grip on Lena's hand. "He wants you outside," Damien said. "He wants you isolated. He is trying to lure us." Lena felt a strange calm settle over her. "Then let him. I am done being scared of him." Damien exhaled in frustration, but he saw something in her eyes that made him pause. Determination. Fire. Survival. He nodded once and guided her out the side door while guards circled the perimeter. The garden was soaked, the air cold, the storm howling between the hedges. Lena stepped forward, her breath visible in the chilled air. "Marcus," she called. Her voice echoed sharp and fearless. "You do not own me. Not anymore." A figure stepped from the shadows. Hooded, dripping with rain, posture rigid. "Marcus." His voice slithered across the distance like poison. "You ran from me, Lena, but you are mine. You always were." Damien stepped in front of her, a wall of fury. "She is not yours." Marcus laughed, a sound twisted by obsession. "You cannot protect her. You do not know her like I do." Damien moved in a flash, grabbing Marcus by the collar, slamming him back against a stone pillar. The rain soaked all 3 of them, lightning flashing across Damien's furious face. "You hunted the wrong woman," Damien growled, "and you crossed the wrong man." Security swarmed, pulling Marcus away, pinning him to the ground. He screamed Lena's name, but his voice was drowned out by thunder and restraints and the chaos of his downfall. Lena stood frozen, tears mixing with the rain. For the first time in years, she felt something powerful. Freedom. Damien walked to her chest, rising and falling, his eyes softening as he reached her. "He cannot hurt you again," Damien said. "It is over." Lena fell into his arms, her breath breaking with relief and the fragile beginning of hope. Marcus was dragged away, screaming, into the night. The storm began to ease. And for the first time, Lena let herself believe that her heart, her life, her future might truly belong to her again. Damien held her closer, whispering against her hair, "You are safe now. You are free. And I am here for as long as you want me." She closed her eyes, letting his warmth steady her. And the past finally loosened its grip.